What can we learn from Bonnie Blue?
So I know I told you could just watch, but I think it's better if you join in.
I'm not built like you.
No, but you will be. Guys, take her. She's ready to be stretched.
Oh my
I
god.
cannot wait to teach a virgin girl. The quote, just guys, but barely legal bot girls, turns me on to another level.
Okay, so this was one of the first videos that I ever saw of Bonnie Blue. The algorithm showed me it, and I just couldn't stop thinking about it for days. Now, I have been umming and ahhing about doing this video, and I suppose that's given me some time and space to think about how I want to talk about this. And it's not going to be maybe what you would assume this podcast is going to be about. I am going to resist the temptation of being pulled down a conversation of discussing whether or not what she's doing is a good thing or a bad thing, an empowering thing or a disgusting thing, whatever that may be. I want to frame this differently. And that's why I started this podcast with the question, what can we learn from Bonnie Blue? Because her rise in the online space and the amounts of money that she's making, she mentioned she's making at least £1 million a month. I want us to look at that and think about it from a society point of view. Not how is this happening, but why is this happening? Why has she managed to crack the algorithms? Why is she so popular? And we will get into that on this podcast, but let's concentrate on this particular video that really brought her work, I suppose, because it is sex work, to my attention. And for those that are listening, it's Bonnie Blue holding the camera. She's got a girl next to her who looks very, very young. She's of course going to be over 18 because otherwise this would be completely illegal. And there's maybe 20 men in the background, all with balaclavas on, and they've just carried her over and they are essentially acting out the start of an adult scene. But Bonnie quite clearly says about taking her virginity and how exciting it is and how much it turns her on. My first question is, why are the social media platforms not suppressing this content so heavily that nobody ever sees it? So then a response to that could be, but what is she doing that's wrong? And we have to look at that question because everybody in the video is 18, everybody is consenting. And I'm confident to make that assumption completely because she is, when you watch her podcast, the podcast interviews that she's done, and you watch documentaries that have been made about her, like, they're not breaking any laws. Everybody signs consent forms in their videos, etc., etc. So the the AI systems that run these social media platforms are extremely sophisticated. So why is it not reading a video like this? And even though it's not doing anything in a pornographic way, it completely is doing everything but the actual act, right? It suggests she's explaining what's just about to happen. They're talking about virginity. They're talking about young girls. There's 20 men there just about to have sex with her, and I can't understand why this is freely available on the internet. And the thing about this is, which we could call clever by Bonnie Blue, is this is the type of video that makes her so popular because it causes absolute outrage. And the comment section fires off because you've got people who are absolutely disgusted with what she's doing, but then you've got other people who support what she's doing because they're saying she's just a woman making a lot of money and have provided a product that lots of men want and will pay for. And then they're going at each other in the comment section, and it kicks the algorithm completely into gear. And then it finds people like me, because social media platforms know that I am a 39-year-old man and I will be interested in at least watching this. So she's cracked the code, but I'm wondering, why should everyone be allowed to crack the code? Or are we entitling this free speech situation? Just before I move on to the next phase of what I'm trying to talk about, there's a very famous boxer called Mayweather, and he is debated as one of the best pound for pound fighters that's ever lived. I think he never lost. And I remember seeing a clip of him many, many years ago, before I even done any of this work. And he said, it's something along the lines of, and I'm massively paraphrasing here, I've completely cracked the code, and my pay-per-views break records every fight. Why? Because I've got people paying that hate me because they want to see me lose, and I've got people who are paying who love me, who want to see me win. So I've got the whole crowd, not just supporters paying for the pay-per-view, but everyone's paying for the pay-per-view because they want to see it. And I feel like that's kind of what she's managed to create here. Whether you love her or you hate her, you want to see, you're curious about what she's doing, because we've never kind of ever seen this before. Now, I'm sure these types of scenes or acts have been created millions of times by sex workers, but never in public like this, on public platforms. What kind of message is this sending out to young people who come across it? Who will come across it? I mean, this will be being fed to young teenage boys, for sure. And I go back to my original point. Why are the social media platforms not doing more about this? Or are their hands tied behind their back and they can't do anything about it? But what we see on our Something to Say page, which I'm wearing the merchandise here on the YouTube video, if you are interested in that, go to Something to Say Official. The movement that I created, giving people a voice to share their stories if they wish to. We often have our videos suppressed, demonetized by YouTube because they're breaking their guidelines. Give me 1 second, I'm going to pull up an email sent to me by YouTube explaining why. Okay, so here on the screen you can see an email that I received from YouTube, and it says, after conducting an additional review of the video, we've determined that it is not suitable for all advertisers. As a result, it will run limited or no ads. And the title of this video is Surviving Childhood Abuse, a Story of Resilience and Healing. And YouTube have found this video, read it using their sophisticated AI systems, and have suppressed it. But Bonnie Blue her numbers are through the roof. Now, it's possible that she is demonetized. In fact, I'm pretty sure she will be demonetized because she's initiating, I don't know what the correct word is, suggesting of sexual activity. But she's not going to care because she is on websites like OnlyFans, and apparently she's got millions of subscribers, and she confesses to making over at least £1 million a month. So it seems like there's this massive double standard. And just to finish off on this social media point, why? Is it because Bonnie Blue gathers so much attention, especially from these platforms' viewers, that actually they sell more ads to these viewers then? And Bonnie Blue is a driver. She's a machine for that. So of course they want Bonnie Blue on their platform, because so many people are interested in seeing what it is that she's doing. So with that video, you saw her talk about taking this girl's virginity and how much it turns her on. We're going to talk more about this particular topic area, but first I want to explain a little bit more about her work. So she is almost like, some people call her as like a stunt woman. She pulls off these stunts, these big stunts, and that gather media attention, and then she has products behind paywalls that men buy. And the other let's call it a stunt that she was doing was about barely legal boys. Here's another video of hers.
I don't think I've gone young enough. Yeah, I want the most barely legal 18-year-old. Ideally just 30 seconds past midnight.
Okay, so she started going around to universities and she went to spring break, I remember seeing. And what she wanted to do was sleep with barely legal 18-year-olds. And this definitely caused uproar. I saw lots of social media posts about it. Let's talk about it here. As I was talking to lots of my friends about Bonnie Blue and the situation, and some of the colleagues that I work with, one of the things that we discussed was that they are 18 and they all sign consent forms. So actually what she's doing is not illegal, first of all. But then the question is posed, well, is it immoral? And she knows what she's doing, right? She is, and again, I used the word clever earlier. I'm going to use the word, I feel like I want to call her a marketing genius because she, like I say, she cracked the code. Look at her using barely legal as a term because she knows it sparks shock and disgust and attention, which drives her platforms up, which pulls people into getting to know of her work, and then people buy her videos. It's all a big machine that she's created with her team. And as far as financially goes, she's winning. But this whole barely legal situation, this whole barely legal fantasy, this whole taking the girl's virginity, why is that here? And why is it so attractive to so many different people? I feel like there needs to be an explanation for this, and one that I can come to the conclusion of is it's the power over something that is, in air quotes, still innocent. These are old school traditional views that I'm using, or ways of that I'm explaining it. But the fantasy of taking a young girl's virginity, I think, has been here for forever. And I think if you dived into the pornography websites, you would find lots of videos around this. So I don't think it's good enough for us to just say it's disgusting and she's disgusting and what she's doing is completely immoral. I think we also need to really have a look at, well, it's got mass appeal. And why? I've watched a number of videos of her being interviewed on long form podcasts. So I've watched some who really disagree with what she does and they go at her. I've watched some which the interviewer is like, all power to you. I've even seen her on some comedy podcasts. And she is explaining that she is just providing what people want, and actually she's providing a fantasy or a model or videos where people can release to, and then they won't need to go out and get the real thing, or try to obtain that in real life. And that's one of her claims. I just don't know how to think about the barely legal thing. Now, what's very interesting is if you swap the genders, if she was a man and this man was going out, labelling what he was doing as being after barely legal girls, just turned 18, fresh 30 seconds after their birthday, this man wouldn't still be alive. He would be shut down immediately. But this, with the gender reversed like this, it's almost like as a society, we're kind of almost more okay with it, maybe I should say, than if it was a man going after barely legal girls. So there's a weird thing going on there. But also, it's another thing, not just the virginity fantasy, it's the barely legal fantasy. And it's funny because on quite a few of my most recent podcasts, I keep talking about the podcast that I released reviewing the pornography directors. And they were all saying, the younger you can make the models look, the younger you can make them act, the more views. are coming towards that video. And somebody's just sent me a short video of a police officer, apparently it was a couple of years ago, saying there are 800,000 men registered in this country who admit to having a sexual attraction, desire, however you want to label it, towards minors. So with my opening question on this podcast of what can we learn from Bonnie Blue, I'm starting to want to answer it as a lot. And if you're angry with Bonnie Blue or you're disgusted with Bonnie Blue for any reason, and I am attempting my absolute best to not get pulled down the hole of getting into the discussion of what she's doing is right or wrong. I'm trying my best to stay on track and keep this as what can we learn from what she's doing. Even if you find her disgusting and you hate her, you may feel resistant to saying we can learn anything from her, but I think we can. If anything, looking at it from a bird's eye point of view, her work is highlighting the issues that we have as a society with these social media platforms that are profit driven, whose priority is not young people, whose priority is not the community or society, but also the problem that we have as a society with mostly men desiring these taboo situations, these forbidden fantasies. And this is something that we really need to at least be having a conversation about. Now, this is not a new thing. I want to jog everyone's memory, anyone who's, I don't know, maybe 30 years old and upwards, because we had a pop singer rise to fame. I must have been around 10 years old, and her name was Britney Spears. And the first song that she ever released was Baby Hit Me One More Time. I'm going to just double check whether I've got the title of that song correct. Okay, so I got the title of her first song correct. It was Baby One More Time. Now, I don't know what that title means. I would need to look into the lyrics of the song to get a better idea. I'm not going to do that right now, but as you can see on the screen, the music video, do you remember what it was? It was Britney Spears in a college outfit. Her shirt is rolled up, her shirt is unbuttoned, and she's with, we could say, classmates, and they're dancing in a locker room. And I have seen short documentary clips saying that Britney Spears, when it was her rise to fame, and she was ginormous, wasn't she? She was portrayed as an innocent, young, maybe I say little girl, and that was so appealing to many different circles. You know, it would have been appealing to young college girls who could relate to her too, but there was a very sexual element in her marketing, and that's how she was marketed, because it made money. Now, this was released, this song, Baby One More Time, was released in October 23, 1998. So things were going on back then. Now, we like to think that we advance and progress as a society and as a community, but now we're talking about 2025 and we're still seeing the same thing in front of our eyes on our media platforms, and no one's doing anything about it, and it still sells and it still makes money. What's going on here? So let's quickly talk more about the barely legal fantasy, the taking of the virginity. And I want to move this conversation now to the next phase, please. 1 second. I need to reset my camera. So I received quite a few messages some weeks ago with people wanting me to check out one of Bonnie Blue's latest posts, or latest stunts, as we're calling them on this podcast. And this one really, really threw me. Let me pull that up 1 second. So here's the post, and in the picture you are going to see Bonnie Blue dressed as a teacher with hardly anything on, and lots of girls and boys in the background dressed in school uniform, and there is a large man in the background who is going to be, I'm guessing, playing the position of another teacher. And the caption is, "Best way to learn about the human body is rearranging the insides." This is from Bonnie Blue's Instagram page, and her title of her in her bio is, "You may not know me, but your husband does." Okay, so that's how her provocative attitude. So the image, we're back to the school. It's set in a school classroom, and you go across and they are just images of these very young looking girls and boys. Of course, we're going to make a confident assumption that they're all 18. Why would she break the rules in that way? She just gets shut down because then they've got something on her that's illegal. And they shot a scene in this classroom, and she's playing into the schoolgirl fantasy. The schoolgirl fantasy, which I believe has been around for generations and generations. We know that because I remember that it used to be not a fancy dress costume, but, you know, when we were young and we were going out to bars and clubs, I'm talking like 18, 19, 20, the schoolgirl outfit used to be about, and that used to be considered as sexy. And I know pornography has lots of fantasies along these lines, and I can only imagine on the illegal websites what's this is like. So I was discussing this with a colleague of mine, and we were talking about this schoolgirl fantasy and her playing it out, and her claim to say, well, look, these men who find this desirable can release themselves on my videos so they don't go and get the real thing. We started to try to break this apart, as myself and this particular colleague like to do. We tried to think about it critically from all angles. And we talked about that particular fantasy. And then what I tried to do was I tried to compare it to other fantasies that are... No. Let me rewind a minute, because my colleague very cleverly said what she's doing is she's reenacting an illegal scene. She's reenacting an illegal crime, because of the obvious. So it shouldn't be allowed, because my part of the discussion was, can you stop people from creating content around fantasies when there's nothing illegal happening, because they're all consensual adults making the video or the film? So my colleague, I mentioned it again, my colleague said, but they're reenacting something that, if done in real life, would be illegal at its highest level. So I was like, okay, so that's a really good point. So if we were going to go along those lines, does that mean that nobody would ever be allowed to make videos of strangulation, physical force during sexual acts, any type of role play, which if done in the real world would be illegal? Then we've got to cut all of those. And then what about people, adults who get off on those scenarios, each to their own, you know? Then what are we going to do? What do we say to them? No, sorry, you can't engage with that, even if it's consensual, because you're reenacting something that, if in the real world is done, it would be illegal. Do we put kind of like a silencer on what people desire as adults? It just becomes so tricky. But one of the discussions that we had was, well, this particular fantasy involves one of the participants being a minor, and that puts it on a different level. The other thing that I worry about with this school fantasy, which has been around for generations, but one that Bonnie Blue is promoting, and the barely legal stuff that she does as well, is her millions of followers and her millions of sign-ups to her video content, people who follow her, people who praise her, men who get off on what she's doing. I worry that, let's say this particular school scene, they will watch that and it will ignite something in them. Even if they watch it out of curiosity, it's possible it could turn them on in some kind of way, and then they begin moving towards that direction of looking for people who look younger and younger, and that could spiral out of control. It could not for some people, and it could be absolutely fine. Some people drink alcohol and they're absolutely fine with a lifetime of alcohol, but some people can't handle it. Something similar to that. I don't know if I should make that analogy, but I just did, so I hope that it's not too far off the mark. Is it also for those that know they are being turned on by this fantasy, by watching the videos that Bonnie Blue is creating, like in a school or a set-up school, a mock-up school, and they're masturbating to it, which creates an orgasm, which creates a reinforcement in your brain, which lowers the barriers of entry to that forbidden fantasy. That can only be a bad thing, surely. That can only be a bad thing. It's only heightening the appetite for you to then be tempted to want the real thing, because a video isn't satisfying enough, or a video eventually doesn't satisfy you enough. Okay, so, oh my goodness, my brain is really working on overdrive, so thanks for sticking with me on this, because I'm really trying to do this in a correct way. Now, personally, I can give you I will give you my personal opinion on this. I do not like this school fantasy. I think it's dangerous on so many different levels. And we would expect major platforms to also find it dangerous, but Bonnie Blue gets everywhere. So, for example, This Morning, which is a national program, actually featured her and interviewed her. Let me just find that video for 1 second. So, the video title on This Morning, which is a huge national TV programme, writes, Bonnie Blue, I make £600,000 on OnlyFans by seducing students. And they were happy to platform Bonnie Blue. And you know what I see in that? It brings views, it brings clicks to a channel, and it brings money. So why wouldn't they? Even if morally they think it's incorrect. I mean, the title isn't great, is it? I make 600k on OnlyFans by seducing students. But everybody wants a piece of Bonnie because she brings the views, she brings the clicks, she brings the money. And in essence, subsequently, she makes a lot of money out of that too. So people's morals are pulled down when the pound sign is presented. But what's frustrating about this for me is they would never have me on because of my story and sexual abuse. That's not true. That is such an arrogant thing for me to say. You know something, quick tangent, right? You know something that I've learned through doing this work. If you've been following me for some years, I've been doing this nearly 7 years. So if you were following me like 5 years ago, if you go to my Instagram and you scroll all the way down to like 2020, 2021, you're going to see that my posts were written really angrily. I was frustrated that shows wouldn't have me on. I would spend a couple of hours every day writing to shows like This Morning, telling them my story, telling them what I'm trying to achieve. And I used to get so annoyed that they wouldn't have me on, or I never heard back from them. And you know what? That was wrong by me. It's because my product isn't good enough yet. Like I'm not going to bring the views and the clicks that will bring the money. So why would they have me on talking about such a taboo topic? But they'll have Bonnie Blue on talking about such a taboo topic because she brings the clicks and the views and the money. And I need to accept that. I need to build my platforms into a reputable situation and be in schools nearly every day before these take notice of me. But it was frustrating for me to see that everybody wants to jump on the bandwagon. But why not? Because it's so curious. It's so curious inducing. I don't even know if that's a phrase, but I'm so curious. I'm so interested in what she's doing and how she's doing it, and how and society's reaction to it all. Like, I'm curious and interested in it. So she does that thing that I mentioned about the fighter Mayweather did. Whether you like her or not, you want to watch what she's up to, because if anything, it's really fascinating. And then Channel 4 go and release a documentary about her. 1 second. So I found it, and it's called 1000 Men and Me, the Bonnie Blue story. So just for those that don't know, Bonnie Blue slept with 1000 men in 24 hours. That was her stunt. And they'd done a full documentary on it. And I watched it, and I felt it was a bit of a shame because the creator of the documentary, or the writer of the documentary, clearly did not like Bonnie Blue. So it was very, like, all the language, all the questioning was skewed one way. I wanted a balanced report of what she was doing, because what I also want to hear about is I wanted to hear from all the men that queue up to sleep with her on this 1000 Men and Me. There was like queues going down the corridor of men who had signed up to try to help her break this record. I wanted to hear from them. I wanted both sides of the story. But anyway, that's beside the point. They did the documentary in the way that they did it. But Channel 4 were happy to do a documentary on her. Maybe they wanted to try to expose the dark side of what she was doing. Fair enough. But what was very interesting was when I went to watch this documentary, all I had to do was click I am over 18 and I'm in. And that documentary had sex scenes. Okay, so private areas were blurred out. Bonnie Blue's breasts were not blurred out, but she was having sex on camera and they were showing those scenes. And I'm like, anyone can go. Didn't there need to be a restriction on this particular documentary? No. Why would Channel 4 not want to restrict that particular documentary? Because if they stop 16, 17, 18-year-olds from watching it, not that I reckon many did, but then the views go down and the clicks go down and the advertising space goes down. And it all, in my opinion, it just boils down to money, really. Not the safety of young people, not the safety of communities, not the safety of societies, not the safety of culture. It doesn't matter, because sex sells. The conversation of sex sells, the whole interest of sex sells, and if it gets clicks and views, everybody's in on it. And that is where my concern comes from. What are we actually doing here? Should these platforms have more of a responsibility on what is promoted by algorithms and what is suppressed by algorithms? Should we run algorithms in a way that young people only see certain content and it's only educational and inspiring and empowering? And for anyone that thinks that would be very complicated to achieve, it wouldn't. AI is hugely sophisticated and these algorithms are hugely sophisticated already. You will know that because your home feed is mysteriously curated for what you want that day. So why should we be putting more emphasis or pressure on social media giants, big platforms, TV programs like Channel 4, TV programs like This Morning, to be more responsible with what they're putting out there and to report on it? If they want to report on it in a certain way, because the internet is a free place now. Children and teenagers can access so many different things. There's no age restriction on anything anymore. Back in the day, you would have to have been up late at night to see something with adult themes, or you would have had to have got into the cinema, but you would have had to have shown ID to get into a film that had a certification of a certain age. Now you just click and you're in. And algorithms are throwing young people videos and clips that they think will entertain them or find them curious, and then these young people are watching them, maybe getting worried from them, maybe getting scared from them, or maybe finding them so entertaining and laughable that they start sharing them around their friendship groups, and then we've got no control at all in what young people are seeing. And I think this is really dangerous. And Bonnie Blue and her rise to fame and her videos and her content and what she's doing out there in the online space is a big lesson to us as a community and a society that we need to get our act into gear. So to finish off with the question I asked, what can we learn from Bonnie Blue? I think we can learn a lot from Bonnie Blue, and I think it should drive action from every one of us. Thank you.